slave. Then when he was freed, he was no longer a slave, of course. He died in 1915. Here's a picture of them taking him to the grave here, actually, in the casket. I never saw this. I never noticed this picture before. Because they're taking him to that spot there before there were trees there. You see the casket being brought in here, and the picture would have been taken from that angle. So it's like really what it was a building here looks like. So like it's taking him to that spot right there. George Washington Carver, he was 1864, and he died in 1943. And again, this is pretty much where he saw in the pictures of his funeral also, which would have been in the original chapel, not that would have stood in that same spot. All right, let's come over here. Let me tell you some information. Okay, now I want you to notice some stuff. Now in Tuskegee, you can actually walk up to graves. They don't get like particular about stuff like that. So if you want a Tuskegee tour, the tour guide was here. The tour guide will be all up here and right up in the thing. Now, his body actually is in the crypt piece back here. This is just a tombstone. Now, the tombstone is designed to tell you about his life, and so I want to make sure you understand why they designed it this way. You notice that his name is cut in real hard and smooth, and the rock is real kind of broken and kind of rough looking. This is basically the story. This rock kind of tells you the story of Booker T. Washington's life. He was born a slave, and he had a really rocky life in the sense of he had to live on a plantation. He had to follow, do what his master said. And then when he realized he could actually was free, he walked from one side of Virginia to the other to where? What university? Hampton University, and then began his life. And he came with nothing there. He came out a student that they wanted to ask to start a university in Alabama called Tuskegee. Now, the reason that they use this is also the way his personality was. Booker T. Washington actually wasn't a really nice man in the sense of how he was to the students. The students viewed him as a very mean guy because he was very demanding. He was like, you will not leave here until this building is done, and you must do a building in order to graduate because I have to be sure that you know what you're doing. So while you're making that building, you're not necessarily happy about it. You thought you were coming and just getting some book knowledge and then a few years later graduating. Now that you're here, you're like, I got to make a building before I leave here? What's going on here? What's that all about? So he was a very rough kind of personality. He was like, he was not the easiest person to get to know. He was kind of prickly. He would say something nice and he would like blow you off and that kind of stuff. But the reason that his name is very emboldened and very smooth is that when he came to fundraising and making money for Tuskegee, he was the best at it. He had white people, black people, every kind of culture you could think of giving money to Tuskegee. So when he would speak in front of a crowd, by the time he was done speaking to them, all they wanted to do was give money to Tuskegee. So even though personality-wise he was very rough and gruff, people that really knew him, he was smooth as ice when it came to running the affairs of Tuskegee University. So that's why they designed it like that. He had a rough life, he had a rough personality, but he got the job done, and that's how they have that there. So you can say you've now been to the gravesite of Booker T. Washington. Follow me around the circle this way, and you'll see other Washingtons in here. Those flowers are not real, so you gotta worry about stepping. He had, if you want to take a photo, you can. If you see other Washingtons, he was married like 4 times, not at the same time. And so there's other wives and other people and presidents of the university that are buried here. Now, George Washington Carver's grave. Come on down to this one too. Now this one, I want you to see how it's designed. Again, it's all about the design. They design it so that you can come down to it. Now the little things that are flying around, do not run from them. They're not bees. They actually won't sting you. And they'll go away from you if you just stand your ground. Or just like move around a lot like I'm doing. They don't sting. They're not really. They're just a southern bug. Okay, let's get over it. Now, George Washington Carver. If you notice, his grave, the letters are facing facing which way? Toward me, not that way. And that's because they designed it for you to actually come down and sit down and reflect at his grave. If they just wanted you to read it, they would have turned it around that way. Now, give you some information about George Washington Carver that a lot of people don't know. He really was the smartest man of the 20th century. Now, usually when you think of the smartest man of the 20th century, who do you think of when you think of the smartest, brightest man ever?
Martin Luther King.
Albert Einstein. That's who people usually think of when they think of the smartest man ever. Now, you're going to say, well, how do you know that he, George Washington Carver, was smarter than Einstein? And I will give you a quote. So if somebody ever argues with you that George Washington Carver was smarter than Einstein, Einstein once said, the only man smarter than me is, fill in the blanks. Let me make sure y'all awake. It's George Washington Carver. So if anybody ever tells you that Einstein was the smartest, you say George Washington Carver was smarter than him. They'll say, no, Einstein was. You say, well, I'll give you a quote from Einstein. The only man that I can think of that's smarter than me is George Washington Carver. Now, George Washington Carver was a different kind of guy. He was not kind of your average scientist. He was more what you would call a naturalist or a nature kind of guy. He would do a weekly Bible study in the old chapel that was here. And he would tell students to bring plants, trees, and everything natural they could, and he would turn it into something for them to eat. He was trying to show people that nature you don't have to be afraid of. You just have to know what it's made out of. So people were bringing poisonous plants and stuff that they said, you want me to make something to eat out of this. He would turn it into something edible. It may not taste good, but it will be edible. You could eat it. And of course, what's the most famous invention that we still use today that he made? Peanut butter. So he took peanuts and created peanut butter out of it. So now let me tell you another story about George Washington Carver to give you a sense of how smart he was. But again, he was like a farmer. He was very folksy. Unlike Einstein that had the hair real wild, he would come off as a mad scientist. George Washington Carver came off as a farmer. Oh, I'm hungry right now, and we're 8 miles away from the college, and we still got to walk. That's going to take us 3 hours. Let's look around. Oh, we got this, and we got that tree. Let's get some of these, and I'm going to do something to it, and we can eat this, and this will get us back home. That's the kind of smarts he was. He would take stuff that was all around him and turn it into things that we could use. Now, Henry Ford. Who knows who Henry Ford was? Tell me something real quick.
He started an assembly line.
He started a company that made what? Cars. Fords. Exactly. Henry Ford wanted to steal George Washington Carver from Tuskegee because he taught here. And he would always send letters to Carver and say, if you'll leave Tuskegee, I'll make you a very rich man. Because he wanted Carver to design tires that would never explode. Tires that would, you could ride on them for years and years and years and years, and they would hold together. And Carver could do that, because he could turn almost anything into anything. So Carver said, I'll help you do that, but I'm not leaving Tuskegee. I'm staying at Tuskegee. Now, I'm saying this before I give you the rest of the story. Remember what I said yesterday about the uneducated, miseducated, educated Negro, about how Woodson wanted people to stay in the community with their bright and smarts instead of leaving it?